There's something about the underdog that feels universal. It's that quiet, stubborn heartbeat underneath every great story. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, if we tried a little harder, we could become something more than what the world thinks we are. When I think about what makes a good underdog, my mind goes straight to Rocky Balboa. But not the champion, not the statue, but the man before all that. The guy who's barely making rent, stumbling home from another small-time fight, his face swollen, his life is going nowhere. That's where good underdogs begin. At the bottom, not in a tragic, pitiful way, but in a painfully human one. Rocky doesn't start off as a hero, he starts as a man trying to prove he's not a bum. There's a beautiful line in the first Rocky movie where Rocky says,
"It really don't matter if I lose this fight. It really don't matter if this guy opens my head either. Because all I want to do is go the distance." Nobody's ever gone the distance with Creed. And if I can go that distance, you see, and that bell rings and I'm still standing. I'm gonna know for the first time in my life, you see, that I weren't just another bum from the neighborhood.
That line Rocky says, I believe it's not just about boxing. That thought is about his identity. A good underdog story isn't just about the odds stacked against somebody. It's about a person confronting the belief that they don't deserve to be more than what they are. But the secret to writing a good underdog isn't just hardship, it's vulnerability. You have to let the audience live inside their failure. You have to make us feel the weight of their limitations, not as obstacles to overcome per se, but as truths they have to accept. Rocky's not some powerhouse waiting to be unleashed. He's out of shape, he's broke, he's lonely. The fight isn't against Apollo Creed, it's against a part of himself that's given up. A well-written underdog also has stakes that feel personal. It's not about saving the world or achieving fame. It's about reclaiming dignity. That's why when Rocky finally stands toe-to-toe with Apollo, we don't need him to win. We just need him to stay standing, because that's the victory the story promised us. That effort by itself can be redemptive. The same blueprint runs through the Karate Kid. Daniel LaRusso doesn't want to prove he's the best fighter. He just wants to stop being pushed around. When Mr. Miyagi tells him,
Daniel-san.
What?
Karate here. Karate here. Karate never here. You understand?
he's not teaching him how to punch harder. He's teaching him what all good underdogs eventually learn. That the battle is internal long before it's physical. And that's what makes Daniel's story work so well. He's not just fighting Johnny Lawrence. He's fighting his own insecurity. His own feeling that he doesn't belong. Every time he waxes a car, sands a floor, or paints a fence, we're watching him learn patience and self-control. It's mundane, almost boring. But that's exactly why I think it's brilliant. Because a good underdog arc is never about spectacle. It's about the process. It's about those small, repetitive steps that slowly chip away at who they were. The mark of a well-written underdog, I believe, is someone that also carries a sense of earnestness that modern heroes often lack, in my opinion. They're not cool or confident or composed. They're messy, awkward, sometimes even whiny, but they care. That's what makes them feel real, because caring in a cynical world is kind of rebellion. Spider-Man is built from the same DNA. Peter Parker's not a billionaire or a demigod. He's just a broke college kid trying to balance responsibility with survival. When Aunt May tells him,
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble, and finally allows us to die with pride, even though sometimes we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most. Even our dreams. Spider-Man did that for Henry, and he wonders where he's gone. He needs him.
that moment hits not because Peter's some mythic savior, but because he's failed so many times, and no matter how many times he gets knocked down, he still chooses to get up and to keep going. The key to a great underdog isn't them being flawless. They're constantly tempted to quit, and we love them for not doing it. Notice how all three, Rocky, Daniel, and Peter, have mentors. Mickey, Monsieur Miyagi, Uncle Ben, each serves the same role, the external voice of belief when the protagonist has none left. But here's the real trick. A good underdog doesn't change because of the mentor. They change because they finally internalize what that mentor represents. Mickey can train Rocky, but Rocky has to believe in himself, that he can do it, he can go the distance. Mr. Miyagi can teach Daniel moves, but Daniel has to find balance. Uncle Ben can tell Peter that with great power comes great responsibility, but Peter has to live that truth, often painfully, before it comes real. That's what separates a good underdog story from a cheap one. It's not about a last-minute comeback or a montage. It's about growth. The writer takes us from helplessness to humility and from humility to hope. So what makes a good underdog? It's someone who stands in failure, fights through process, learns through pain, and changes not because the world suddenly believes in them, but because they finally believe in themselves. It's that moment when they stand up, not because they can win, but because they want to stand up and say, I am. That's what makes the underdog immortal. And that's the foundation of every story we'll talk about next. Why we love them. There's a reason the underdog story never dies. No matter how many times we see it, no matter how predictable the ending might seem, we still lean forward in our seats, we still cheer, we still feel, because at its core, the underdog story is our story. The story of being underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed, and still daring to care. When I think about why we love underdogs, I think about Peter Parker. He's not rich or famous, and he's for sure not lucky. He's just a kid trying to keep his life together while shouldering a responsibility that constantly breaks him apart. That's what makes Spider-Man one of the greatest underdogs ever written, in my opinion, because his struggle isn't just physical, it's moral. He's fighting to be good in a world that punishes his goodness.
You and I are not so different.
I'm not like you. You're a murderer.
Well, to each his own. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero. And they found you amusing for a while, the people of this city.
But the one thing they love more than a hero
Is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Because it's right.
In Spider-Man 2, Peter loses everything. His powers, his jobs, his best friend, even the woman he loves. He tries to live a normal life, to finally put himself first, and for a moment, we're happy for him. Unfortunately, it doesn't last long, because being Spider-Man isn't a choice. It's a burden he can't walk away from. And that's the essence of the underdog. They're defined not by what they want, but by what they refuse to abandon. That speech from Aunt May captures it perfectly. It's not about heroism in the grand sense. It's about endurance, about believing there's something inside of us that keeps us fighting even when it hurts to get back up. That's why we love Peter, because he fails, he doubts, he bleeds, and yet he never stops showing up. Underdog stories speak to something primal in us, this ache to believe that effort still matters. All of this has to be worth something. In a world that often rewards privilege, luck, and timing, the underdog reminds us that sweat, heart, and persistence can still move mountains. When we watch Rocky jogging through the streets of Philadelphia, or Daniel sanding floors until his hands ache, we feel like our effort means something too. We see proof that maybe we don't have to be the best, we just have to keep trying. But there's also something moral about it. We love underdogs because they deserve to win. Their opponents usually have every advantage, power, money, skill, but often lack humility. When Daniel faces Johnny and the Karate Kid, the victory feels right, not because Daniel's stronger, but because he's grown. He's learned balance, control, respect. The fight isn't about beating Johnny. It's about earning his own self-respect. That's what makes underdog stories so cathartic. They restore moral order. They tell us that arrogance will always fall and humility will always rise. It's a fantasy, sure, but one we desperately need. Because life doesn't always work that way, unfortunately. The best people don't always win, and a lot of the times hard work doesn't always pay off. But in their stories, it does. And that's what keeps us watching. At the same time, good underdog stories aren't just comfort food, they're truthful. Rocky doesn't win the fight in the first film, he loses, but we love him anyways, maybe even more because of it. Because what we wanted wasn't a champion. We wanted a man who wouldn't quit, who stuck to his word to go the distance. And that's the paradox of the underdog. Their value isn't in victory, but in continuance. It's the same reason Spider-Man's stories hit so deeply. His victories always come with sacrifice. He saves the day, but loses something of himself in the process. The girl, the friendship, peace. We love him because he keeps choosing to do the right thing even when it costs him everything. That's what makes an underdog. Not what they gain, what they're willing to give up. There's also something deeply human in watching someone defy what they're told they can't be. When the world says stay down and they stand up anyway, it sparks something in us. It whispers, maybe you can too. We love underdogs because they make hope contagious.
Nice and easy to go down. Slower, gently.
Is he alive?
He's just a kid. No older than my son.
It's all right.
We found something. We won't tell nobody.
That moment on the train, to me, that's everything. The people see Spider-Man stripped of his mask. He's in his most vulnerable state, and what they find isn't a god or a celebrity. It's just a kid, exhausted and scared. He's human. That's why it lands so hard, because for the first time, everyone in that car sees themselves in him, and in that recognition, we feel it too. The truth is, we don't just watch underdogs to see them win. We watch them to remember what it feels like to try, to believe that small acts of effort, getting up early, showing up tired, doing the right thing when it's easier not to, still matter. Maybe the point of struggle isn't the victory at the end, but the person you become along the way. And that's what connects all three of these characters. They don't win because they're destined to win. They win because they decide to keep standing up when the world says stay down. That's why we love them, because when we see them climb, we remember that we can climb too. But what happens after we leave the theater, after the credits roll and the music fades? That's when the real question begins. How do these stories change us? How do they make us want to be better? The reason underdogs matter isn't just because they win, it's because they change how we see ourselves. When we watch Rocky go the distance, Spider-Man swing back into the fight, or Daniel lift his leg for the crane kick, something stirs inside of us. It's not just about excitement, it's recognition. Because we've all been there, the late nights, the self-doubts, the feeling that the world is 10 steps ahead of us while we're still lacing up our shoes. Underdog stories inspire us because they speak a language we already know, struggle. And the best ones remind us that struggle isn't something to hide from, it's something to embrace. Look at Daniel. Every humiliation he goes through, every time he's knocked down, embarrassed, laughed at, it becomes part of his growth. Mr. Miyagi doesn't teach him to fight for revenge. He teaches him to find balance. That moment at the end when Daniel wins not through brute force, but through belief in himself, belief in what he's learned, it's not just a victory for him. It's the culmination of everything he's endured. The same goes for Spider-Man. Peter Parker doesn't win because he's the strongest. He wins because he keeps showing up, even when he's broke and tired. Even when everybody turns on him, even when every inch of his body hurts. That final scene in Spider-Man 2, knowing he can't have a normal life, it's bittersweet. Because being an underdog, it's not about getting everything you want. It's about becoming everything you're capable of.
And you know why we can't be together. Spider-Man will always have enemies. I can't let you take that risk. I will always be Spider-Man. You and I can never be.
And sometimes that means sacrificing comfort for purpose. Rocky embodies that same truth. He doesn't need to win the fight to win at life. When the final bell rings and he's still standing, calling for Adrian, to us, the audience, that's the real victory. He's proven something, not to the crowd, not to Apollo, but to himself, that he can endure, he can go the distance, just like he said, that he's not just the bum everyone said he was. And that's personally what I think makes underdog stories so timeless. They're not just fantasies, they're mirrors up to the human condition, to us, what we live through. They show us that greatness isn't reserved for the chosen few. It's something anyone can reach, if they're willing to sweat for it, to bleed for it, to keep going when everything tells them to stop. And maybe that's why these stories hit so hard when life gets messy, because they remind us that the climb is the point, that every small victory, waking up early, staying disciplined, forgiving yourself, is part of your own underdog story. We look at Rocky and we see the version of ourselves that refuses to quit. We look at Spider-Man and we see the version that still does good, even when no one's watching. We look at Daniel and see the version that learns to fight without losing who we are. Each of them tells us the same quiet truth, that there's something worth fighting for, not out there, but in here. So maybe that's why we love underdogs, because in a world obsessed with winning, they remind us of something far more important, that trying is sacred, that falling and getting back up means more than never falling at all, and that the real fight, the one that matters the most, isn't against the world. It's against the voice inside of us that says, you can't. So when we watch Rocky run through those steps, when we see Spider-Man swing through the city, or Daniel land the final kick, we don't just cheer because they finally made it. We cheer because for a moment, we believe maybe that we can too, because deep down, we're all just trying to go the distance. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you really liked it, make sure to subscribe for more content like this in the future. I have been your introduction to everything philosophy. And until next time, remember to always think like a stoic.